Thank you for picking me. And I just love Jerry and Esther, and I can't describe how much you've helped my life and the teachings of Abraham.
Well, we're all in this together. We want to emphatically remind all of you that as problems are coming into focus, solutions are too. And if it weren't for the details of what you were all living, we would have very little to say.
That makes me feel better. I related to the man that was the divorce attorney that was here, because I just completed a divorce, and we did it without an attorney. Tried to do it as much in the vortex as possible. And my question is, I've completed that stage, and now I want to take the expansion from where I am and go forward. And just want to have a conversation about releasing any resistance that I still have about that decision to have had the divorce. And, I've listened to all your information about relationships and the vortex and creation and all that, and still felt like that was the path of least resistance in my life.
Well, sometimes it is. We're not suggesting that action sometimes isn't the path of least resistance. Sometimes it's easier. If you have something that you are observing on a really regular basis and it seems to keep jerking you out of the vortex, sometimes it is easier to walk away from whatever that is. However, the tendency to keep staying out of the vortex in defense of that behavior is also really what you want to keep your eye on, because there's a tendency now to justify why you went that route by remembering all of those things that were the reason. And,
yes.
and that holds you in resistance to what you put over here. You have to understand that through that relationship and even those before, you have created a version of relationships that now you've got to live up to. You've got to find some way of being a vibrational match to your dream world. Now, we're going to explore this just a little bit. Relax, you're really going to like this. Not just the subject of relationship relative to mates and divorces and marriages, but all kinds of relationships. Just hold that general picture for just a little bit. So let's say that you have in your mind's eye an image of what family is supposed to mean. And often, let's say your parents fought, and so you put an image of people that got along. Or let's say that your parents divorced early, and so you created in your vortex of creation a marriage that lasts, or a relationship that is enduring, or a relationship where both partners respect one another. So through all relationships, all of you, you continue to create this version of life that you've carved out of all that you've watched. It's like sometimes Esther will say about her daughter, Tracy. Tracy has an image of the way family is supposed to be, and it doesn't include her parents on the road all year. It includes them home, playing with the children, being available at all times. And so sometimes Jerry and Esther will say to each other, we're not living up to the image that Tracy has carved out of life. And we say, no one ever can. You are all day, every day, relative to your politicians, relative to your scientists, relative to the people that run the airports, relative to people who are in control of traffic, relative to whoever brings room service. You are creating a new and improved version of everything that touches your life. And then you get bent out of shape when they don't live up to your version. But what's going wrong is, and we love you so much, and we want so much for you to hear this in the spirit with which we mean it and know it, no one can live up to your version or should ever be asked to. Because it's your version. You're the only one who's supposed to live up to your version. And you live up to it by talking about your version, thinking about your version. Wouldn't it be nice, my version? Look at that. That sort of matches my version. This is part of my version. I like this about my version. I like this about my version. My version of life is this. If you would orient yourself into the version that you have carved out, the universe must deliver to you your version. But most everybody, instead of making any effort to live up to your own version, which you created, you're asking the people that gave you the fodder and the basis for you to create your version. You're saying, okay, you made me create it. Now you have to live up to it. Otherwise, I suffer that I have this version over here that I can't be a vibrational match to. Can you hear that? When we say you're the creator, what do you think you're the creator of? You're the creator of your version. You're the creator of the vibrational expanded version. Now hear this. So here you are as individuals flowing your desires into this vortex of creation, this mass consciousness vortex, which is the vibrational place from which new generations are being born. They're being born up to speed with your new and improved version. The babies that are born now, there's a lot of them that'll take a while. Now. These babies that are being born now, they're up to speed with that version. But you're not. Almost no one who is in physical form is up to speed with their version because you've got what is-itis. You're looking at what is, you're pigeonholing what is, you're cataloging what is. You have put such a magnificent new version of a new relationship in your vortex, and you really owe it to yourself to live up to that version. And you cannot live up to that version that this last relationship emphatically helped you to create as you are pondering that relationship. So what do? You make peace with it. Now hear this. When you're outside the vortex, and a perfect reason to be would be in the middle of a divorce or freshly from a divorce, when you've sort of ramped up those fists and staked your claim and made your decisions about what you're going to do. It's an out of the vortex time often. But when you contemplate that relationship from outside the vortex, it just feels blameful, and it feels guilty, and it feels blameful, and it feels guilty, and it feels uncomfortable, and it feels tiring. In other words, all of those out of the vortex emotions really reflect that out of the vortex position that you're standing in. And blame or guilt are the two most natural emotions for someone who is in the middle of or just having come through a divorce when you're not standing in the vortex. But when you're in the vortex, now we don't care how you get in, and we'll talk about some ways to do that, but when you're in the vortex contemplating that divorce, when you're in the vortex, think about what that means. When you're in the vortex, you're over there with everything that you've carved out of life. You're over there in the vibrational version of the new and improved version of you and your life. So when you're in the vortex with all that good stuff that you've carved out of life, you know how you feel toward those who helped you carve it out? Thanks. Thanks. Because if it weren't for the trouble you caused, I would not be standing here. But when you're not standing here, when you're standing over here, damn you for the trouble you've caused. Feel the difference? When we say make peace with it, we really mean you got to get into the vortex before you can make peace with it, because nobody's going to make peace with something when you're out there on that raw and ragged edge. But when you get into the vortex, then you feel it, and you know that, don't you? After the fact, don't you often find yourself experiencing something and really feeling satisfaction and appreciation for everyone involved in putting you where you now are? But before you got to where you now are, you cursed every one of them for their role in your troubled life, you see. So that really is what you're reaching for. You want to make peace with it. We were giving something similar to a woman a few years ago, although we did not have the vortex terminology. It was not nearly as clear and succinct a presentation. Same basic principles, but she wasn't having any of it. And we said, if you could just get into the mode of appreciating, we suggested that she buy a notebook and make a list of positive aspects about her ex-husband. She said, Abraham, you must have misunderstood me. I don't want to get back together with him. I don't even want to have lunch with him. And we said, we're not trying to get you back together with him. We're trying to get you back together with you. And you can't get back together with you, the new and expanded version of you, as long as you're still focusing on all of that. You just can't do it. Makes sense, yes?
Yes.
So, want to give us an example of something that's going on, and we'll show you what we would do if we were standing in your physical shoes?
Well, we have an 11-year-old son, and I guess that's where my guilt kind of comes in. I see the effects that it has on him.
Well,
Because
you have
he's not happy.
But wait, the only negative effect that you could ever have on anyone, especially your son, is if
Being
you're out of the vortex.
Yeah.
And so now we've got circular reasoning going on. I'm out of the vortex because I'm blaming that, and now I feel extra guilty because my out of the vortexness is negatively impacting my 11-year-old.
Yeah.
People worry about divorce, and we say children from divorce have advantages because they have two families often that are offering different examples of life that just gives them earlier understanding of contrast that helps them choose more explicitly how they want to live and how they want to feel. We would stand as the example of someone in alignment with Source and never mind anything else, because you didn't come to live a perfect path to teach him the perfect path. You didn't say, I'll go forth and I'll figure everything out and I'll live all those things just perfectly so that my son doesn't have to figure anything out from his reason for being here. His contrast will be irrelevant to him because I've lived all the contrast that is necessary. I've figured it all out for myself, and then he will benefit by what I've lived. I'll just stand in a perfect place and he'll just mimic me. And we say, no, he won't. He'll rebel at that. He wants to have his own life. He wants to have his own contrast. And this is contrast that will serve him. It will not hurt him. The very best thing that your child could witness in you is someone who's determined to feel good and willing to think the thoughts that make you feel good. A mother who has divorced his father and still loves his father. Can you imagine the benefit to your 11-year-old if you're in the vortex spewing positive aspects about his father? And can you imagine the detriment standing outside the vortex spewing negative, defensive attributes about his father? In other words, in order to justify that you were right by leaving, let's just bash dad and make sure that everybody understands that it wasn't my fault. That's what most mothers do in divorce, where what you want to do is get into the vortex where you appreciate fully the expansion that that man has helped you to achieve, and to reflect that to your child on a really regular basis. I'm so much more because of your father. Your father helped me in this way and in this way. I don't believe that any of us ever want to find dependency with any other person. And I can't think of anyone who I have learned more from than your dad. That's the inside the vortex message. Long list of appreciation. And then your child runs around the world saying, my mom's so cool. My mom's so cool. She doesn't sweat the small stuff. She doesn't even sweat the big stuff. She just stays cool. She's clear-minded. When she looks at me, I just feel better when she looks at me. It's like she's tapped into the good stuff, and when she looks at me, I get some of it. That's what a kid who's a product of a mother in the vortex experiences, you see.
Okay. Thank you.